This is the Elevate Construction Podcast, delivering remarkable content for workers, leaders, and companies in construction wanting to take their next step. Get ready to step out of your comfort zone with Jason Schroeder as he encourages you to do better, live a remarkable life, and expect more. Let's go.
Welcome to the Elevate Construction Podcast, where we help you stay sane through proper life management. My name is Jason Schroeder, and today's topic is about how to stop worrying and start living. So why would you want to listen today? Have you ever had anxiety? Have you ever been overly stressed? Have you ever had panic attacks? Have you ever been so inundated with work that you didn't know where to go to get help and you didn't know what to do? Well, if any of those things sound familiar to you, or if you can associate some past experiences with any of those concepts, then today is going to be worth your while. I'm really excited about this podcast because this book and these concepts have really changed my life for the better. Now, I do want to enter this topic with kind of a disclaimer. There are some types of anxiety, there are some types of worry, there are some types of stress which are clinical. Meaning you need a doctor, a psychologist, you need professional help with sometimes medication or therapy or other modalities that will help you to get better. But sometimes we can be perfectly healthy and our stress is driven from our minds. I'm talking today about a few little tips and tricks from the type of stress that is dictated to us or given to us or caused because of our habits, the way we're thinking about things, the way we're managing our lives. I'm not talking about clinical depression. I'm not talking about clinical anxiety. I'm not talking about things that would need to be professionally diagnosed by a doctor. So I hope any professionals out there would be proud of me for saying that, and on we go. We're going to go ahead and tackle this topic. So here's a quote. The best way to prepare for tomorrow is to concentrate with all your intelligence, all your enthusiasm on doing today's work superbly today. That is the only possible way you can prepare for the future. And that's Dale Carnegie. Now, why would I talk about a quote that is discussing doing things today when we are focused today on a podcast about anxiety, about how to stop worrying, about how to start living? Well, I will tell you, one of the main concepts of this book is to live in daytight compartments, to neither live in the past, in the world of regret, and to not live too much in the future, to the point that we stress ourselves out. Now, that might be a little bit counterintuitive because project managers and project superintendents and general superintendents and directors and executives have to focus on the future of scheduling and planning and preparing work. But we need to make sure that our stress levels, the things that we can control, are kept within daytight compartments, and at worst case scenario, maybe week tight compartments. Worry about the things of today. Don't let tomorrow stress us out. Don't let yesterday stress us out. One of the best things that I've ever been taught, let me tell it to you again. The best possible way to prepare for tomorrow is to concentrate with all your intelligence, all your enthusiasm on doing today's work superbly today. That is the only possible way you can prepare for the future. So again, live in daytight compartments. So let me tell you a quick introductory story for this. I started suffering from panic attacks when I was about 18, and I've had a great life. I haven't had super distressful circumstances in my life. I've had all of the things that I've ever needed, so I'm not whining. I haven't been hindered by this. I haven't, I had lasting consequences from this. And so my circumstances are not as bad as a lot of people who have been affected out there. I'm simply telling you that I know a little bit about it. And because of my circumstances, which I appreciate and thank God for, I've been able to get through it. And my hope and prayer and wish would be that anyone else can do the same thing as well. And if you do ever have a medical condition, that you can get through it. So when I was about 18, I started to have panic attacks. I had no idea where they were coming from. I remember driving home. I was a couple miles away from my house and just feeling so overwhelmed and so freaked out that I pulled over on the side of the road. I thought I couldn't breathe. I was about to call 911, but I eventually ended up just calling my parents and walking through it and talking through it and getting through that moment. But those panic attacks started to come more and more frequently. And if anybody doesn't know exactly what a panic attack feels like, it would be like this. This is the best example that I've ever heard. And again, I'm sympathetic for anybody who's really been in this example. I'm not trying to make light of it. I'm just trying to associate things. So somebody said that anxiety feels like your child or your wife is dying in the hospital and only has minutes to live or seconds, and you're trying to get there to either help them get better or wish them farewell or say your last goodbyes, and you're at a stoplight. The feeling that you would have, that sense of urgency that you need to get to a location, but you're stuck at a red light, you can't go anywhere, it's pointless, you have a circumstance, you have a situation beyond your control where you feel like you're being held back. That's the most similar thing or the best example that I've ever heard describing what anxiety is. So back to that, I would have panic attacks, and what compulsive people end up doing, if you do any research on it, and I had to find out why I was doing this, compulsive people start to have either twitches or compulsive behaviors or certain things that they do because it gives the mind a sense of comfort and a sense of control in situations where there's a perception that there isn't any control. So I started to poke my chest and twitch a little bit and like fiddle with things. And my wife would be like, Jason, what's wrong with you? You can't go into meetings doing that. Like that's, you look out of control. You look really fidgety. You look unnerved. And I had this for her up until I was, I think, 32 years old. And it was a nightmare. And I do remember 2 weeks, and I only had depression for 2 weeks. So God bless anybody out there, whoever deals with depression. I mean, you've been through a lot, and I couldn't imagine going through that for longer than 2 weeks. So I went through, like, I'm talking serious depression. This was about the time where there were a bunch of wars, and Ebola was a big thing over in Africa. And I was just watching a lot of the news, and I wasn't exercising, and I just went like down, like my mental health went in a bad direction, and it was so bad, so scary. And I was so numb to caring about life that I literally triggered something in myself and I freaked out. I immediately that night started jogging. I asked friends for help. I told my boss, and one of my good friends gave me a book recommendation called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And I really feel like that was a game changer. I remember pacing out in front of my house and worried that night because I had been suffering from a little bit of insomnia, and I couldn't go to sleep. I was worried about going to sleep, that I wouldn't be able to go to sleep. And then I got to a chapter in the book, pacing outside of my house, in front of the house, trying to figure this out. I just got done jogging, and the chapter started to talk about the fact that you will go to sleep, that if you stop worrying about insomnia and just go do something and get busy, your mind will forget about it and you'll naturally fall asleep. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, there are answers for every single thing that I'm worried about. Now, again, I'm not talking about clinical depression or clinical anxiety. I'm not talking about actual medical problems. I'm talking about stresses and tricks that our mind will play on us because we have this monkey mind. And that was the first time that I ever thought that, wow, some of these things that I feel like are unique to me are pretty common to human beings, and there are solutions, and there are people that have gone through these things before, and I can get through this. Now let's go back to this concept of a monkey mind. I learned about this in Unbeatable Mind, and he talks about the monkey mind, that your mind will start to grab onto things like stress or worry or different thoughts or inappropriate thoughts or, hey, I need to remember to do this, or distractions or daydreaming or whatever, unless there's a muscle and it's not really a muscle, but unless you flex the metaphorical muscles of self-control, of mind control, and get to the point where you can control the thoughts that you have and bring yourself back to a focus. And that's really where meditation comes in. And some people don't like meditation. Some people have religious beliefs that are against meditation. But when I talk about meditation, or specifically box breathing, and this is something that we teach in our boot camps, where you breathe in for 5 seconds, hold it for 5 seconds, exhale for 5 seconds, and then hold it for 5 seconds. Not only can you calm yourself down, but the purpose is to force your mind to visualize the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. And every time you say a number, you count, you visualize that number in your mind and you bring your mind back into focus. And you say, do not think about these other things. Do not do these other things. Don't get distracted with these other things. Bring it back to that box breathing where you focus, where you have to count 1 through 5 around that box, breathing in, holding it, breathing out, and holding it. And that gets your mind to be cleared. Let go of the things that little monkey inside your mind is grabbing onto and getting distracted with, and you bring back in your focus. So monks and yogis and people who practice this meditation, really it's about mind control. And that's how, Buddhists and other folks out there can sit in the freezing temperatures outside in the mountains and mentally control themselves, mentally control their body temperature and survive because they're not distracted, they're not worried. And it's really about mind control and about controlling that monkey in our minds. So really, that was the first time that I felt like or realized that there were solutions to the problem. And so I slept pretty well that night with a little bit of hope, continued jogging. And my boss told me, and I'm not recommending this, I'm just telling you what kind of closed out the story for me. My boss recommended a naturopathic doctor. Those are big in Arizona. And, I love doctors. And I also believe that there are certain things that we should do to be healthy even before we get to the doctor, right? So the naturopath helped me to figure out that there were a couple of things that I was allergic to. I stopped eating those things. And after a month, everything went away. Anxiety went away. Panic attacks went away. My worry went away. Depression went away. Everything. And it turns out that my issue was inflammation in my abdomen, in my chest. And it gave the feeling that I couldn't breathe. And then once I started to feel like I couldn't breathe, I would start an irregular breathing pattern. And then that irregular breathing pattern would mess with the carbon dioxide levels in my blood. It would give me tingling sensations. I would get lightheaded, and it would trigger a panic attack and a number of other things and just mess with my balance, right? And so once I got the allergies taken care of, read this book, dealt with some mental stress, got a balance, it was really fantastic. So my only point there is, unless it really is truly a medical thing for which you need medication, there are answers out there that can help. There are diets out there. There is exercise. There are a number of great things out there that can get you a little bit of the way as long as you don't have a serious medical problem. So I calmed down. I was able to talk through it. I was able to get to that naturopath and get rid of that inflammation and really get through it. And it's been fantastic ever since. And some of my kids have had some of the same issues, and I've been able to coach them through these things and give them some of these tricks as well. And I remember it's probably not a secret to anybody on the podcast that I've flown probably now, and this isn't remarkable for a lot of business people, but for me, it's a big deal, probably over 700 flights now in my lifetime. Heck, maybe even more, maybe even 1,000 flights. I've been executive platinum, American Airlines a number of years, Southwest A-list preferred. Again, there's no status there. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying that I fly so much that I always get these awards programs. And I remember one flight where I was particularly nervous and stressed, and I'm on the plane on the way back, freaked out, feeling cooped up, in a panic attack, well before I, figured all that out and got a hold of this book, right? And the person next to me was like, you have got to get it under control. You are a mess. And he calmed me down, allowed me to talk through it, and said, you have to conquer this for your children. You can't just let this go. And so that was a really powerful thing to me. So the book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, is just as amazing as How to Win Friends and Influence People. They have stories. They're good principles. There are probably one or two things that have been more advanced since that book from a medical perspective or a treatment perspective. But for the most part, it's really good practical advice. So like I always do, I'm not going to give you every section, but let me read just a couple of these things. So part 1 is the fundamental facts you should know about worrying. Part 2, basic techniques in analyzing worry. Part 3, how to break the worry habit before it breaks you. Part 4, 7 ways to cultivate a mental attitude that will bring you peace and happiness. Part 5, the perfect way to conquer worry. Part 6, how to keep from worrying about criticism. Part 7, 6 ways to prevent fatigue and worry and keep your energy and spirits high. And just like we talked about in another podcast the other day, energy is key. Energy drives absolutely everything. So let me just point out just a couple of things in here that I thought were fantastic that will hopefully allow you to be hungry for reading this book if you ever have issues with anxiety or depression or worry. So in part 1, the fundamental facts you should know about worry. Number 1, it says, if you want to avoid worry, do what Sir William Osler did. Live in daytight compartments. Don't stew about the futures. Just live each day until bedtime. Now, at the time when I read this book, I started to practice this and really get into my daily to-do list and stop worrying about things. And I would get things out of my head and onto my to-do list so that I could have some peace of mind. And it was absolutely over the top fantastic for me, and it worked for me. Here's another example. Part 3, how to break the worry habit before it breaks you. Section 1, or principle 1, is crowd worry out of your mind by keeping busy. Plenty of action is one of the best therapies ever devised for curing what he calls wibbergibbers or wibbergibbers. That's crazy. You can tell that's written a couple decades ago. But anyway, the principle there that worked for me was to stay busy, right? And this isn't like keep working busy. This is when you're with your kids, focus on that. When you're playing, focus on that. When you're with your wife, focus on that. When you're watching a movie with date night, focus on that. Be fully engaged in the moment instead of daydreaming and worrying and thinking about things. Be actively engaged in what you're doing. Crowd worry out of your mind and keeping busy. That was something that helped me. Let's go to another example. Part 4. 7 ways to cultivate a mental attitude that will bring you peace and happiness. Principle 2 was, let's never try to get even with our enemies, because if we do, we will hurt ourselves far more than we hurt them. Let's do as General Eisenhower does. Let's never waste a minute thinking about people we don't like. And I remember thinking at the time, that doesn't apply to me. I typically don't have any issues with that. And then there was a time when at church I got really upset at somebody and wasn't forgiving. And man, I just ran my personal and mental and spiritual energy down into the ground. And my wife was like, you've got to forgive, honey. And I just really had to focus on doing that and get rid of those negative thoughts, get rid of that lack of forgiveness, and just free myself because, they say that forgiveness is a gift that you can give yourself, and that really worked out. So that section was super helpful. Let me give you another one. Part 6, how to keep from worrying about criticism. Unjust criticism is often a disguised compliment. It often means that you have aroused jealousy and envy. Remember that no one ever kicks a dead dog. Now, no one ever kicks a dead dog means you're not going to waste time on something that you can't punish or that is ineffectual, right? If you weren't something that was worth criticizing or worth talking about or worth being jealous, people wouldn't make the comment. So all of these criticisms that we worry about really shouldn't affect us because it's kind of a compliment unless it's just healthy feedback from your coach, from your mentor, from your manager. So that really helped me because I have historically been really sensitive to praise and really sensitive to criticism. And if somebody would say something negatively about me, I would worry about it for a couple of days. And thinking about it like this has really helped me over the years, not immediately, but to depart from those types of thinking. Now, part 7, I'm just going to list these off because they're so amazing. 6 ways to prevent fatigue and worry and keep your energy and spirits high. Now, anybody in the field of construction and management, any field, any position, this applies to you. This is right here for you, free of charge. I'm giving it to you. It's amazing. Go download this book. This applies to you. In fact, you have to do this. Principle number 1, rest before you get tired. Number 2, learn to relax at your work. And there's some great tips in there for that. Number 3, learn to relax at home. Excellent tips in there for that. Number 4, apply these 4 good working habits. Clear your desk of all papers except those relating to the immediate problem at hand. Do things in the order of their importance. When you face a problem, solve it then and there if you have the facts to make a decision. Learn to organize, deputize, and supervise. Okay, principle 5, to prevent worry and fatigue, put enthusiasm into your work. Number 6, remember no one was ever killed by lack of sleep. It is worrying about insomnia that does the damage, not the insomnia. Now, all of those right there, those those 6 principles right there, you can go immediately implement. And I would say, actually, you need to go implement those in construction. How often in construction do we not go get rest before we get tired? How often are we not relaxed at work and we're just stressed and worried about stuff? How often are we just wound up at home and we don't take the time to decompress? How often do we have messy desks? And I will say, do this tomorrow, please. Every construction, I can tell immediately a little bit about somebody's life based on what their desk looks like. So go clear your desk of all the papers, clear it off, do things in the order of their importance, right? When you face a problem, solve it right then and there and say, I'm getting this done now. And then be organized and prevent worry and fatigue. And remember that a lack of sleep, insomnia isn't the problem. Go do what you need to do. So amazing, amazing sections. Our current condition in this industry is that people have a lot of issues and they don't talk about it. They think it's normal to suffer. They stress and it affects their life. And people just think that's the way it has to be. And I'm telling you, please hear me. It is not how it's supposed to be. This is not what is supposed to happen in your life. You should expect more, expect better, and you can go get that fixed. And that's because just because it's the current condition doesn't mean we have to stick with it. So the solution is to talk about it, to speak about it, to ask for help, to do some research, to fight it for others and fight it and give it time so that you can give your children, your family, and other people that might have the same conditions some help and advice. Other people in construction will have these issues and you need to be able to give them advice. And I will say just one more time, if you're ever seriously depressed and you have serious anxiety and those things have been diagnosed and you need medication, please go get the help. Please go talk to professionals. Please tell your spouse. Please tell somebody at work. Please speak about it, because once you give it a voice, then other people can jump in and help and be supportive, and it's just an amazing circumstance. So I will challenge you right here and now, at not, just for the heck of it, but if you have anxiety, if you have worry, if you have a hard time shutting your mind down, if you have depression, go read How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. Talk to your spouse about it. Ask for advice. See your doctor. Do something, because suffering is disrespectful to you and it's disrespectful to anybody around you. There's no reason to not live a remarkable life. So here's some tips and tricks. Here's the tip I would give you. It's all been figured out. We just need to find the information. So don't give up until you find the information. Keep going with massive action until you get this figured out, until you get a healthy, balanced lifestyle, and you can live an absolutely remarkable life. So in closing, the vision for this would be that when people come to work, they're healthy and happy and whole and they have what they need. And that we go home without that worry, without worrying about anchor bolts and the stresses of the day and contractor defaults and things like that while we're talking to our spouse, that we have actual tools that help us out, because it kind of works in both directions. Where our mind goes, that's where our body goes. Where our body goes, that's where our mind goes. And if we have chemical problems, if we have medical problems, that's one thing. But if it's simply about affecting our schedules, living in daytight compartments, forgiving other people, and using some of these other wonderful tricks, and this book is pregnant with meaning. Like, it is full of wonderful tricks. I've scratched like 1/100,000th of the great information that's in this book. If you go implement these things, then you've given yourself a good fighting chance, right? So those are the tips and tricks. That's the closing. I hope that everyone gets what they need. To close this down, I'll say, please reach out to me if you have any feedback, if you want a podcast topic, if you want to do an interview. Email me at jason.s@elevateconstructionist.com. IST stands for Insights, Solutions, and Training. Next week, we have some really cool stuff coming up. It's what I call the War series. Now, it's exciting for you. It's a little hard for me because it takes so much research to get through these stories and to explain them. But construction is war and waste is the enemy. And next week, we'll have a series of podcasts that are what I call the War series. And it's absolutely over the top amazing. You're going to love the content. Please share this podcast with anybody ahead of next week so they can get that content, so they can listen to those podcasts. Until we meet again, on we go.
Please join us next time in elevating the entire construction experience for workers, leaders, and companies coast to coast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to share with your construction colleagues and help us spread the word by rating, subscribing, and leaving a review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time on the Elevate Construction Podcast.